Namaste everyone. Wanted to share another beautiful concept from our Sanatan Dharma. This beautiful concept of Drashti Kona, which is like our viewpoint or perspective, and understanding and having a greater perspective is very important part of our spiritual evolution or wellness. Drashtikona, it comes from the two Sanskrit words. Drashti, which means our sight, vision or perspective, and Kona means angle or the corner. So typically Drashtikona will literally mean our angle of vision or the point of view or our perspective. Now in Advaitic concept, our Drashtikona is really a set of belief system or our holistic viewpoint about the world, about the divine, about the spirit and the spirituality. And like the typical example is like we have the Dvaita, the dualistic perspective, and Advaita, the non-dualistic perspective, or like believing in the divine or not believing in the divine becomes another way to look at it. Then we have the negative perspective or the limited perspective or Drashtikona, when our viewpoint is narrow or the scope of our viewpoint is narrow or self-centeredness. It is bound by our ego, fear, or probably the past conditioning, our previous experiences. It lacks the higher understanding of the perspective of ourself as well as others around us. It also lacks for compassion, often leads to misjudgment or conflict and the spiritual stagnant or pain and suffering in our life around others. It can be as simple as like associating or recognizing ourselves just as the body, like I am this body, denying our spiritual reality or of the self or the Atman, or like my religion or my path or my belief system is only the way of the truth, which again becomes limited perspective. Or sort of like we think like, okay, the God is punishing me, I've been punished for something, instead of understanding that everything that is happening in our life is really the consequences or the series of what we have done in our life. Typically, when we have the negative or the limited perspective or the Drashtikona, it leads us into the consequences of like fear, anger, jealousy. It sort of hinders our spiritual evolution. It leads to attachment and it empowers our negative ego. Our mind becomes reactive and non-reflective. We lose ability of reasoning or rational constructive thinking. And it of course takes us away. It blocks our journey towards spiritual evolution or self-realization, meditation. Now, typically, how do we shift our perspective? Now, one of the concepts in Sanatan Dharma is actually studying of the scriptures, like our Vedas, our Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras, which helps us to understand our individual, our negative, our egotistic perspectives, and then we have the teachings how to change from the negative into the higher perspective. Like our contemplations, regular meditations, and reflection on the divine or the higher, the cosmic principles of the Atman and the Paramatman, the individual self and the higher self. A regular practice of gratitude and compassion, knowing what we have and how we change our limited perspective, the self-obsessed ideas into the greater perspective of the universe or our life itself. Also, developing a greater perspective through satsangs, developing the ability to also listen other people, understand other people, others' belief systems and perspective, and looking at each and everything again from a greater perspective. As simple as like looking at right, looking at left, looking above, looking below. So we begin to see there is so much more in life and in our understanding, in our experience. So the satsangs are really important aspect in that concept. And then another really important concept of asking ourselves, what we call the swadhyaya, self-study or introspection, looking within ourselves to see if we are limited, and if we are, then moving away from our own self-obsessed asmita or the ahankara perspective, the drashtikona, into the adhyatmic or the higher perspective, where we enable ourselves to see beyond our limited cognitive or the limited experience of our gross or the physical mind. So, regularly meditating, contemplating, and reciting or reminding ourselves to the greater perspective. One of my favorite practice is also go out in the nature and see the vast ocean, see the vast horizon, look from the top of the mountain to see that bigger picture, look out of the window to see as far as you can see, and have this beautiful awareness, this beautiful sight that we all have been blessed with, and explore that nature, explore that union, explore that divinity in our life, and always reminding that for our spirit, this body is just a limited time of journey, or it sort of dwells in this body to have this experience. And we can change our experience by changing our perspective. We can change our life by developing or inculcating the great positive perspective rooted in truth, in compassion, and in the higher or the divine, the cosmic reality. So let's live this adhyatmic perspective that there is a spirit within all of us. That spirit, that Atman, is always eternal. That has nothing to do with all this drama that we all live each and every day. And it is beyond into the Sat Chit Ananda, the truth consciousness place. So may we all access the Sat Chit Ananda. Om Shanti.